I'll wait another minute to see if there's any other people wanting in. A little bit longer. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start. My name is Alicia. Today we have Barbara and Diane from the League of Women Voters of Dallas here to discuss local elections and explain the importance of voting in them. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that is dedicated to ensuring that voters have the information they need to make informed decisions. Before I turn the program over to them, I would like to mention that we are recording the program and we'll be sending the link to that recording to all who registered. If you have any questions, please wait until the end of the presentation and you can type those questions in chat, or you can click on the raise hand icon so we can unmute you so you can speak. Before we begin, Barbara and Diane wanted to know if you have voted in a lot of previous elections or if you are a new voter. So if you have voted in previous elections, could you please click on the raise hand icon so we can get an idea of how many of you are veteran voters? Okay. Thank you for that. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Barbara and Diane. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. We are going to talk about the May elections. Barbara has a PowerPoint that we're going to be sharing with you. I wanted to basically say that the local elections really have a greater impact on our daily lives than the presidential elections. And so because these people, our city council people are advocating for us on the things that affect us every day in the city. This election is going to be covering council members. The mayor has a 4-year term, so he's not on the slate, I don't believe. And then we also have 2 propositions, and Barbara will be talking about that. First, I want to mention that we have a wonderful website. You can find it at www.lwvdallas.org. And we will have a little bit of more information about that later on. And I look forward to the questions and answers. It looks like there's a real big mix of experience on voting, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you. And Barbara, take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Barbara Larkin, and I'm the VP of Voter Services with the League of Women Voters of Dallas. And so I have a presentation that's a mix of things about this election and then things generally about voting. So we'll go to it. Stuart, can you share it? Thank you. You can go to the agenda. Thanks. Okay, so it looks like a long presentation, but it doesn't take me that long. So we're mainly going to talk about the process, why to vote in the city council race, who's running, and then a little bit about how to register to vote, how to vote in person, how to vote by mail, and some of those things, and questions. So that's it. Next slide. Okay, so I always start with this slide, and it's just important if some of you are veterans, but I always like to mention this because you probably know people that are relatively new voters if you are a veteran. And one of the things I like, because we spend a lot of time at the community colleges talking to students and a lot of new voters, and I think sometimes people forget that voting is really a process. They think of it's just sort of you show up and that's it. But we always like to mention especially in Texas, there's steps to voting, and there's steps that happen before you vote. And the most important is in Texas, you have to be registered 30 days before the election. So first you have to register. Then I always recommend everyone check if they're registered. We have found that if people move in Texas, that it's fairly easy to get purged off the voting rolls because sometimes the county mails you some kind of notification, and if you don't return it, you can get purged off the voting rolls. So we always say, check if you're registered, and we'll talk about that more. Make sure your photo ID is updated. Researching who your representatives currently are is an important step. Researching who will actually be on the ballot is important, and we'll talk about that. Then research where and when you want to vote, make a plan to vote, and then you can either vote by mail or vote in person. So next slide. Okay, so the city council race. So this is an important race. This actually might even be more important now in Dallas than we used to think it was. I think that everything that's happened in the political world in the last 4 years, and everything that's happened with Black Lives Matter movement and the police, and there's just a lot of important things going on in the city council race right now. So city council races, the interesting thing about them, that this next 2 weeks is a really good time to get to know who your city council person is, because they're all out and about. I've been in multiple front yard events in the last week with people running to be my city council person and people running to be other people's city council people. It's a good time to get to know the person who may win the race. So I always recommend that during this period of the leading up to before voting, that try to get to know some of the candidates, because then you might actually get to know who your city council person is if they win. In this particular race, the things that city council will be thinking about over this next 2 years is clearly how to fund the police, how safety is approached, how mental health issues that the police encounter are approached. There's a lot of issues right now that are very real that the city council will be working on. They also set the tone. Every city council person appoints a city planning commissioner. They each appoint one. The city planning commission is very involved with the developers in trying to figure out where new real estate will be developed, how it will be developed. Will it have affordable housing within it or not? Will it have affordable housing vouchers? There's a lot going on in that whole genre of issues right now in Dallas, because rental rates and housing prices have gotten extremely high. And so there's a lot of decisions to be made there. The whole thing on, I know a lot of people say, what about walkability? What about bike lanes? The city council is very involved in that. And so there's some important issues that they will be talking about, and how public transportation relates to that. So public transportation, they deal with all the other agencies that are involved in that. So they'll be taking a big role in that. How homelessness and mental health issues are addressed. They also set policies on job growth and impact how job growth is happening in their own district. So there's a lot that the city council does. And I think this is a particularly important time in Dallas for the city council race. We also have, of the 14 city council people, 3 of them are termed out. Some of the veterans that we've had on the city council are done with they basically hit a term limit. So there's going to be a new crop of people on our city council. So next slide. There are 14 city council districts. I know you probably cannot see this very well, but I just wanted to give you an example, because I think it's important to know what district you're in. So for example, because when I ask people all the time, I say, well, what city council district are you in? And everyone's always like, I don't know. And then they're embarrassed that they don't know. Well, it's pretty normal to not know. So if you don't know what city council district you're in, don't be embarrassed. That's totally normal. I happen to be in 13. It's kind of handy to know the number. So as you can see this chart, you can see that the numbers really do not go in any kind of order or circle or anything that looks like 2 is next to 13 is next to 6. I mean, just the numbers don't really mean anything, but it's good to know your number because, for example, if I hear all of a sudden, I'm busy and I'm not paying attention, then I hear, oh, there's a runoff in District 13. I know that's my district. So I would just say it's good to know what number you are, and it's good to know who your city council person is. So I'm going to tell you in a minute, but just so there's a couple websites that are really important in voting. In my opinion, that there's actually 3 or 4 that matter. But one of the ones, if you live in Dallas County Votes is a very good website. And that's our county election officials run a really excellent website. And so if you go to Dallas County Votes, I always recommend going to Dallas County Votes. They have a section there called Voter Lookup. And go to Voter Lookup and look yourself up. This is a way to make sure you're registered still, that they haven't accidentally purged you from the rolls. Go in, look yourself up. And when you look yourself up, there's a thing that says My Elected Officials, and click on it. And you will see who all of your representatives are. And that's a very important piece of the puzzle, is knowing who currently represents you. So then you can think about who to vote for. But at the bottom, when you do that, if you go to scroll all the way down to the bottom, you will see who your Dallas City Council person is. So if I'll just briefly, I'll talk just 1 second about this. You can see that, for example, Oak Cliff is District 1. That little blue area in the middle of that map is the downtown. So like Oak Cliff is 1. For example, Casa Linda's over in 9. Parts of North Dallas are in 13, parts of East Dallas, south of 30 is District 5, South Dallas is 4, Western Dallas is 6 and 3. So it's just sort of good to understand approximately, how the city's divvied up. Okay, next slide. So this is who the current Dallas City Council is. As I was typing that, I was noticing that there seems to be a benefit to being named Adam if you're running for Dallas City Council. I don't know why we have 3 Adams, but anyway. So those are the current city council people. Lee Kleinman is done with his term limits. Jennifer Staubach Gates is done with hers. And one of the Adams, which I can't remember which one, is also done. So in most of these races, there are between 3 and 5 or 6 people running in each race. I haven't given you the full list of who is all running, but I'm going to explain to you how to go. It's Medrano. Alicia said it's Adam Medrano. She's right. How to go in and see who is running in your race. And we're going to come back to that because that's an important part, to see who's running. But for example, me in District 13, I have 5 people running in that race. And I know I'm going to have a new city council person because Jennifer Staubach Gates is termed out. So it's an interesting time for the city council. There's a lot of people running, and there's a lot at stake in this race. The next slide. Okay, so just so y'all know, there's 2 propositions on the ballot. And I'll give you the background on these propositions the way it's been explained to me, is that the city council creates and appoints people to over 50 boards and commissions to get citizen input into issues that they're working on. They do this all the time. There are citizen boards and citizen commissions looking at and doing research and helping the city council get input from citizens. So recently, the city council actually had the ability to change the rule, and for 50 of these commissions, they changed the rule that not everyone on the commission or board has to be a citizen. If there are some people that they might want to be on the board that are non-citizens. So they made the decision of the 50 boards and commissions that they had the authority to make that decision, that every now and then they would allow a non-citizen on a board or commission if they wanted input from either a specific person that had the expertise, or they wanted some non-citizen input into a board. So they had already made that decision. Turns out there are 4 boards and commissions that they were not allowed to make that decision on their own because it's in the Dallas charter. And so because it's in the Dallas charter, it has to be up for a vote. So the 4 boards, I believe, one is the Parks Board, one is the Redistricting Commission. I should have put them in here and I can't remember, but there's 4 boards. So Proposition A is, should appointees to a board or commission be registered or qualified to vote? So what they're asking is, they're asking the citizens of Dallas to vote on whether those 4 boards can occasionally appoint a non-citizen. So that's what that's about. Then Proposition B is actually related. It's another section of the charter, is my understanding, and it's specifically about the Civil Service Board. And the way it's written in the charter is that all the members of the Civil Service Board have to be a tax-paying citizen, and the city council is asking to have us eliminate that as a requirement. So on Vote 411, this is, I've told you there was 4 websites that we like. One of the websites that we like a lot is vote411.org. And vote411.org is a great way. It's a National League of Women Voters website. You go in, you put in your name and address, and up comes your sort of profile. And you can see in the League of Women Voters website everything about who is running, who the candidates are. We ask them questions. All the candidates, we ask questions of things that are relevant. Yesterday, I was talking to a person running for city council in a race that's different than my race, but I had run into this person at an event, and she said that the League of Women Voters questions were the hardest ones. She said, we had to think about your questions. I said, oops, sorry. We don't want to make them too hard. But she said, we had to think about yours. Everyone else's were kind of easy. And I said, well, okay, good. But so we write questions in there and the candidates all answer them. I went in to check, and I know in my district, all 5 candidates answered all the questions. So I've been reading my own district's questions to hear what people think about the different issues. So if you go to Vote 411, you can read, we have pros and cons on the propositions also in there. And the way the background is written and the pros and cons are written, it might help you make a decision on these 2 propositions, and also make a decision on which of the people running for your city council candidate you agree with. Okay, next slide. All right, so now I'm backing up just a little bit. For anybody who's new out there, who really is a new voter or just learning how to vote, this is just a little background. Also good for any of the veterans, so you can share this with other people that are new or maybe voter hesitant. So the first thing is, who's eligible to vote? You have to be registered. You have to be 17 and 10 months old. You have to be a US citizen to vote. You have to reside in Texas. And if you have been a felon, you have to be fully off papers, is how they describe it, and off parole. And it's best to have your parole officer have said, yes, your voting rights are restored. Next question, next one. So I always say, check if you're registered. Here are the there's 2 websites that are the easiest way to check if you're registered. VoteTexas.gov if you're out of Dallas County. That's the state Secretary of State website. And then Dallas County Votes, the one I was telling you about before, go to Voter Lookup. That's an excellent website. So I highly recommend to check if you're registered. Next slide. So getting ready to vote when and where, Dallas County Votes has the list they have an early voting information. It will tell you where where voting is this time. It will tell you when it is. For those of you who know that Dallas, Tarrant, and Collin all have what's called vote centers. That means the old precinct voting isn't in Dallas. And that what you can do is, if you live in Dallas County, you can vote at any location in Dallas County. So it makes it about half the people in the last election used vote centers, meaning they didn't vote at the spot closest to their house. They actually voted at a different spot. They voted near the grocery store, near the library, or somewhere else they went, somewhere on their path. And so vote centers have been very successful in Dallas. We always recommend planning planning when you'll go. planning, go with a friend if you haven't voted before, maybe, make it an outing. Go ahead, next slide. So here are the dates and times. It actually starts next Monday. And so the first week it's 8 to 5 p.m. So it's Monday, April 19th to Saturday, April 24th. The polls are open 8 to 5. And then Sunday, they're open 1 to 6. And then they're open Monday and Tuesday, April 26th and 27th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then, the way the county elections works is they always take a 3-day break between early voting and election day. Normally election day is a Tuesday, but for this city council election, it's on a Saturday. So this looks a little different, but it's actually kind of the same methodology that they always do. So the polls will be closed Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the 28th, 29th, and 30th. So if you know anyone tell your friends that the polls are closed those days. And then the poll is open on Saturday, May 1st, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So they're trying to make it, they typically run sort of a consistent thing. The first week's usually 8 to 5, the second week's usually 7 to 7. So it's typically the same kind of methodology, the way they just structure the hours. Next slide. I can't remember if I gave you I didn't give you a location slide. Just so you'll know, the locations are very similar to the locations in the past. We don't have the mega centers in this race. We don't have American Airlines Center open, but we do have all the Dallas Community College campuses, except for Cedar Valley didn't make the cut, but the other 9 all did. A lot of the big county locations that you've been to in the past, or the big churches or community centers, those are all open in this election, and that's all on Dallas County votes. Okay, so IDs, always, bring an ID. If someone needs to vote, but they don't have an ID, if they can bring, they can always bring things like a bank statement and a utility bill and something to prove their residence. But usually the best IDs are the Texas driver's license and the Texas ID, because they have barcodes that actually connect to the check-in system at the polling location. So that's why they just scan it and your file comes up. Next one. So researching who to vote for. I had mentioned Vote 411. This is our favorite research website. When you go, you just put in your address, you have to click on personalized voter information in there, and then you can get to all your candidates and all the pros and cons and all the questions they've answered on all those things. You can also, if you want to see a picture of what's on your ballot, a PDF, when you go to Dallas County Votes and you look yourself up, there's a thing that says view my ballot, and you click on it and it shows a PDF exactly what your ballot will look like. On this race, there's really only 3 things on your ballot, but I have found that when I go to Dallas County Votes and look at the PDF of my ballot before a big race where there's going to be 30 things on the ballot or 50 things on the ballot, it's nice to have, I always print the PDF and look at it. You can also mark on the PDF, you can print it if you have a printer at home. You can write it up and bring it with you to the polls. So, the League of Women Voters does the voter guide, and the voter guide is coming out either tomorrow or the next day. I'm not quite sure, the printed one. The Vote 411 is the digital version of the voter guide, and that's already live. So feel free to go to the Vote 411 and do everything digitally. But if you're kind of a printed person, the printed voter guides will be at the libraries sometimes in the next couple of days. So a couple of us, or various us, are going to go deliver them all and make sure they get where they're supposed to go. Next slide. Okay, so we always recommend voting early. I don't think this race, the turnout will be anything like the last race. Dallas typically has lower than 10% at these races because people don't know they're happening. So please tell your friends and neighbors about it. But we recommend early voting generally is just, it's always smoother, I think. Some people like to vote on election day, but I personally like to vote early. I think it's always smoother and calmer and there's no one there. Then if you have any issues voting, there's the hotline that's run by a variety of nonprofits. And it's the hotline is 1-866-OUR-VOTE. And that is if you get there and you're not in the system, or if you have some sort of issue at the polls, if there's any harassment or anything like that, you should call and report it to them, because they're a body that tracks this. They track it all. They keep track of any kind of issues that happen at the polls. And that's that's how we solve problems, if we know what's going on. Okay, next one. Okay, so this, just so you know, the pandemic procedures are going to be in place again with this election. There'll be plexiglass, hand sanitizer. They have the clean stylus thing where they give you the stylus and then they wash it off later. They ask that you wear a mask. Next slide. Okay, so this is sorry, I'm repeating myself. This one is, again, that 1-866-OUR-VOTE. Is a great way to, what you can do is, if you have a problem inside the poll, what you do is you can walk outside the poll and call this phone number, because you're not really supposed to take out your phone in a voting location. At least right now you're not. Next one. So I don't know if any of you are interested in voting by mail, but voting by mail in Texas is, you have to be either 65 or over, disabled. Will be out of the county during the entire voting period, including early voting, or if you're confined in jail. Those are the 4 ways that you can apply for a vote by mail ballot. People have asked, what does it take to be disabled? In Texas law, the definition is a sickness or physical condition that prevents the voter from voting in person without a likelihood of needing personal assistance or injury to the voter's health. That's the definition. Next one. So, there's a lot of discussion about vote by mail applications. So I always like to emphasize that a vote by mail application is a totally different document than a vote by mail ballot. So people get confused because sometimes they get multiple vote by mail applications. Well, it's okay to get multiple vote by mail applications, because sometimes different organizations send them out. They just want you to be able to apply to vote by mail. If you apply to vote by mail, let's say you applied to vote by mail 10 times, the county, they're tracking it. The first application that comes in, they know it's Barbara Larkin with my birthday and my social and my driver's license, and they can see, and they put me on the list that they're going to mail me a ballot. Then if I happen to mail another one in, they can see I'm already on the vote by mail list. So they're not going to send me an additional ballot. They're just going to throw that application away. They've already put me on the list. That's how that whole process works, is that the applications, because sometimes people get upset because they get multiple applications for vote by mail ballot, but it's okay, because the county can handle that. If you happen to mail in multiple applications, they can see you're already on the list. So if you want to make sure that the county got your application, you should call them, and their number is right there, 469-627-8683. And that's how you call the county to find out if they've got your vote by mail ballot. I believe the county is going to do a tracking system on their website. And hang on. Sorry, I got my thing flipped off. So I think the county's going to have a tracking system where you can go online, and kind of like Domino's does, where you can see where your vote by mail application is and all that. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard that they're doing that. So if they do that, that'll be great. That you would be able to see where you stand in the vote by mail thing. Because people, you have to mail the application in, they have to receive it, put you on the list, then they mail you a ballot, then you mail the ballot back. So there's a lot of steps to keep track of. So it's important to, a lot of people want to know where they stand in the whole process. So also, if you're in this situation and you're not sure what's going on with your vote by mail ballot, you haven't received it, for example, you can always send an email to that early voting mail@dallascounty.org. And my experience is they're fairly prompt on answering that email. So if you do have a vote by mail ballot, there's some of you've probably heard that the signatures matter in the whole vote by mail process. So we would just encourage you to do when you sign the application for your vote by mail ballot, sign it carefully. When you sign the ballot, sign it carefully. Just take as much care with your signatures as you can, because they do check those. Not very many people get their ballot thrown out for bad signatures. It's actually fairly rare that happens. It's usually if someone forgets to sign their ballot that the ballot gets thrown out. So we would just say, be mindful when you're in this vote by mail process of signing everything carefully. Okay, next slide. Okay, there's 4 ways to turn in a vote by mail ballot. You can mail your ballot in regular. You can go into the post office and ask them officially to postmark it. You can send your ballot by courier, FedEx, UPS, or a reputable courier. Or in this election on Saturday, May 1st, you can drive over to the Dallas County Elections Office, which is at 1520 Round Table Drive over there, kind of near 35 and Regal Row, and you can turn it in. In this particular election, you can't turn it in during the early voting period, which was allowed in November. This particular election, you can only turn it in person on the Saturday voting day. And we expect they'll be open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at Dallas County Elections. Next slide. So, okay, this is back to there is a spreadsheet Dallas County posts. So once they've received your ballot, they create this big Excel spreadsheet, and you can go in and see that they have received your ballot back. You voted your voted ballot, you voted it, you turned it in. You can go into the Dallas County Votes website and look up whether they have received your ballot. So it's kind of a cumbersome process. It's possible that they're updating this because we have a new elections official, Michael Scarpello, and I know he wants to make this process simpler, but I don't know if they're going to have it done by this election yet. So it's possible you still have to go into the Excel spreadsheet and look yourself up. Next one. Okay, questions about voting. This is the website, lwvdallas.org, is our Dallas League website. The League of Women Voters is sort of organized like the federal government. We have a LWV US, LWV Texas, and LWV Dallas. We're the Dallas League. And so we all have different websites, and they're all actually interesting in their own way. If you're trying to follow the Texas legislature and what's going on with voting bills, the LWV Texas is actually a really interesting website. They have a lot of ways to take action and contact your legislators about those bills that are coming through. But our LWV Dallas website we have a whole section on voting. So if you know anyone that has questions, we would encourage you to go to our website. We try to get it updated. We work hard to update it and have all the latest information before elections. Okay, I think is that the last slide? So maybe questions. Let's see if I can go into the chat. Okay. So do you want to just have people put it in the chat or raise their hand and talk, or whichever is easiest? Do people know how to raise their hand? Will the presentation be available in Spanish? I don't think, maybe we could translate it. I have to look into that. Diane, you're on mute.
That's a great question. I don't know how, I'm not sure we could get it done in time to be useful for this election. Do you think, Barbara?
I could ask a few people if they could do it.
We're an all volunteer organization,
We are.
so, we're dependent on the few people who are able to write in Spanish. And we have some, yes, quite a few actually. So, but we'll try. And so how would we let this audience know?
Through Alicia, maybe? Yeah, if we can get it done, then we'll give it to Alicia Deal and she can post it.
Mm.
How about that? We can ask around today.
Yes, we can discuss and work on that and see what we can do on our end. Make sure we have that kind of presentation available. But again, that's something we'll look into. That's a great idea to do that.
So Marty asked, where do we find candidate info? I would encourage you to go to vote411.org. And when you go to vote411.org, you go over to the area that says personalized voter information. And you click on that. It asks you for your name and address. You put that in, and up comes, there's a thing that says view my races, I think it says, or candidate races. And you click on that, and there's a huge amount of information in there. If you have any issues with Vote 411, feel free to send me an email and I'll help you through it.
Also, there's additional information there are a collection of nonprofits who are doing candidate forums. So these are nonpartisan groups who are having all the candidates for each district come to forums. And when we get a recording for one, we are adding it to Vote 411 as they become available. So you could easily find what we have there on Vote 411. I'm not sure exactly how many have been loaded on so far, but I know that I personally have attended 2 candidate forums, maybe 3, and that were recorded. So
yeah, so our website, lwvdallas.org, if you go into that website, click on it and you click on events, the events calendar comes up and you can see, it'll say candidate forum, candidate forum, candidate forum, and you can click on it. And when you click on it, it says, would you like to register? You click register, and it's free, but they need your info, your email, so they can send you a Zoom link. So yeah, the candidate forums are all on Zoom. I've attended 3, I think 2 also. And yeah, they're interesting right now. So we recommend doing that over these next couple of weeks. Any other questions? What do we got? Mm-hmm. Did someone have a question? Are you raising your hand? Jerry Baker, can you unmute Jerry Baker? This, I think, does Stuart have to, there she go.
Okay, I live in District 10.
Okay.
And I serve on the Senior Affairs Commission representing District 10, which is Lake Highlands and Hamilton Park. And there's going to be also a school board election at the same time. I don't know if any other communities are experiencing this. Well, it's my understanding that because Dallas County is running the election, that the school board candidates will be on the ballot. There's not a separate ballot or anything. Is that correct?
I'm not 100% sure of that, but I would imagine that yes, the school board will be on the same ballot. That I don't think they couldn't possibly be running a separate election.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I don't know if you can see this or not, but I would like to share a mailer that recently I received from Councilman Adam McGoo. And inside, it gives you all the information that you need to know about vote by mail. And it also has cards that, and I don't know if any of the other candidates for council have done this, but Adam sent this out. And it's a terrific amount of, it's very good information as far as how to get your ballot by mail, because I know that was a question that I had early on. And I even called one of the candidates for the Richardson School Board who lives in this area and asked him, and he said, oh yes, you know, it should be on the ballot. And this is how you do it to call Dallas County. I appreciate the information that you've shared today about how to track whether or not Dallas County has actually received this. One of the reasons that this mailer is so important is that we have a large population of older adults who are successfully aging in place in the Lake Highlands and Hamilton Park areas. And so I really commend Councilman McGoo for sending out this information. I'm hoping that some of the other council people will follow his lead.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Someone asked, will the Dallas Library branches be a voting site as in the past? I don't think there are very many libraries as voting site. When I went through the list, I don't recall any. I don't know if Alicia, if you happen to know. Most of the voting sites are not libraries. The community colleges are all voting sites except for Cedar Valley. So, you know, Brookhaven and El Centro and Eastfield and North Lake, they're all voting sites. A lot of community centers, a lot of churches. But Peter's got something to say. Peter, can he be unmuted? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm lit sticking for the feds, and they have a list on the lit. They have early voting locations, and the following library locations are early voting locations: Lakewood Library,
Right.
Lockwood Library,
Mhm.
Audelia Branch Library,
I forgot about those.
Skyline Library,
Okay.
and
What?
Fritz Park Library.
Okay, Fretz. So Fretz up north, a lot of the east, Lakewood, Lockwood, Adelia, they're all kind of east, I think, on the east side.
Well, yes, because that's who our organization is about, is East Dallas.
Yeah, but I can call up the list. It's on Dallas County Votes is where I usually go look at it. But yeah, there tends to be more libraries in the east than the west for some reason.
I don't know if you saw this question, Barbara, but there's a question about if vote411.org is the best place to compare district candidates, and is there any scheduled Zoom meetings?
Right. Well, that's when I was saying that I think Vote 411 is the best place to read candidate answers. But then I think, the best thing to do is to go to a Zoom meeting, so if you go to the LWV Dallas website and look on the events calendar, we have candidate forums that are happening. We've posted there. So if you can, so that's why I said, go look up who your current city council person is, because you need to know what district you're in. So you're watching the right Zoom, basically. So for example, I'm District 13. So now I go to the District 13 candidate forum. So find out what district you live in and keep an eye out for when the candidate forums are happening. Maybe I should have done a schedule in here of all the candidate forums. I'm sorry I didn't do that, but it is on the LWV Dallas website in the events calendar. We have them posted in, on the calendar. You can see where the different Zooms, what days and times the Zooms are happening.
Okay. Does it Oh, okay, I misread it. Are there any other questions?
Mhm.
If there's no other questions, then we can, if it's okay with Barbara and Diane, we can go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you all for attending and keep an eye out for future programs. Oh, will curbside voting be offered again? One last question.
Yeah, so curbside voting is something that's always available to people that have issues getting out of their car. So you can't do curbside voting if you're just sort of afraid of COVID. You can do curbside voting if you really physically can't get out of your car. And the way it's supposed to work at the polling locations is there's always supposed to be a little thing outside the polling location has a button. So you can just push the button and someone will come out with the voting machines. And that is always available by law in Texas at every polling location, or it's supposed to be. Some of them are a little better than others, I'll just say, in my experience. Some of the locations seem to be better at curbside voting. So if you voted in the past, I would, and you know that that location has helped you, I would say that's a good idea to go back to that location. Mhm.
There was a question, do you have resources for Tarrant County?
So Tarrant County is structured the sort of the same way Dallas County is. They also have an election website. They also have vote centers. They also have all the list of where to vote on their website. So Tarrant County, I think it's, if you Google it, but it's like tarrantcountyvotes.org. They have the very similar setup as Dallas County does. So I would encourage you to go to the election website, and they have all the same information that we have, that Dallas has on their website. So it's set up the exact same way. And if you Vote 411, by the way, is a national program.
Yes.
If you want to research your candidates, you just go into Vote 411, type in your address, and it will give you all the questions and answers, everything that the candidates have answered about the candidates running in your Tarrant County races. So the Vote 411, by the way, is a national website. It will work for your friends in other states.
Yeah. Now,
Mhm.
I do want to
Any other-
say about Vote 411, that Dallas County we have a robust group of volunteers who help make sure that we get the answers from the candidates. Some counties don't have as many volunteers, and so you may not get the same level of participation and information on Vote 411. But yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
So yeah, Vote 411 does take human beings to call the candidates and pester them. So it does take people like me who keep calling and calling and pestering candidates to get them to answer.
But most of the candidates are pretty,
Dallas
they
candidates,
understand how helpful the voter guide is for people to be able to make an educated vote. This concept is really simple. For each race, the same questions go to all the candidates. And so you get to see how each candidate is looking at an answer for that question. And so you can use your own values to assess where those people's responses are and make a more educated vote than you would have been able to otherwise. Yeah, it's a great work.
Yeah, so, and if anybody out there is interested in joining the league to help us, we can always use more people to pester candidates. And you can help us even if you don't join the league, but joining the league helps us with all these websites.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Any other questions? Okay.
Well, thanks everyone for coming,
Okay,
and we hope that you are
Go ahead,
able to
Diane.
use the website.
And thanks, Alicia, for organizing this.
Yes.
right, thank you. I thank everybody for joining us. And again, be on the lookout for more programs. Thank you. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thanks.
Thank you.